Morning, everyone. I've got about 40 slides and I've got 15 minutes apparently to go through these with you. So if you've got seatbelts, fasten them. So what I'm doing is it's kind of a personal perspective about social media and the way I interact with radio stations and how they influence me and how social media influences them. This is a picture of one of my radios at home, an analog radio that my mother bought for me because it looked traditional. I've stuck a hashtag up here. We were debating on Twitter before this session what the hashtag for today is. If you don't know what a hashtag is, don't worry about it. I've used this hashtag, but somebody else has used a different hashtag. A couple of different philosophies I want to share with you. One is the philosophy of move fast and break things, and it's the philosophy that Facebook uses to build things. And the whole idea is that the world is changing so quickly that if you deliberate on something for too long, you're dead. Somebody else has come up with an idea. And it's normally a 13 or 14-year-old that comes up with this and sells their company. Instagram is an app for the iPhone and for Android phones, about 2 years old, and it sells for about $1 billion. And they had 9 employees. Fast-moving company, brand new company, and they made a fortune, and now Facebook owns them. But the idea of move fast, break things, try something, keep working. If something breaks, fine. That means you're trying something, you're pushing the boundaries. If you're conservative nowadays, anything web-wise, you're not going to go any further, really. And another philosophy by a guy called Mark Andreessen, he's got this philosophy of software will eat the world, that software can automate so much and it changes. So he said software has killed the newspaper industry because people can publish their own stuff, create their own content, redistribute other people's content with or without permission. It's interrupting and disrupting money and banking, and we have now the likes of Kickstarter, where you can fund your own project on the internet, get the internet to pay for, and you can build products. And people are building phones, they're building computer systems, they're building record labels. So the bit now that we, I guess, need to think about when it comes to social media is you need to go where I am. Where I am is where you need to be as well. I'm no longer going to go to where you are. I'm not going to retune my radio to get your station. I'm not going to switch on the radio at home if I'm in front of a computer. If I'm in front of a computer, you should be where I am. You should be streaming on the internet or an app on my computer, on my iPad. So where are people right now? So I don't know if you've seen these stats already. There's 1 million people on YouTube every single day in Ireland. So that's 1/3 of everyone that uses the web in Ireland are on YouTube on a daily basis. And how many of your radio stations have content on YouTube? The demographic for YouTube, a lot of people think it's just very young people. Half the people are 25 to 44, which is a very good demographic. And importantly now, 1/4 of all the videos viewed every single day on YouTube are coming from iPads or iPhones or Android phones or some sort of smartphone. 25% mobile. In the next 3 or 4 years, it's going to be 75% mobile. Mobile first should be your philosophy for the next couple of years. There's 1 billion users on Facebook. People that log in once a month is classed as a user, so 1 billion people are on it every single month. 2.6 million in Ireland are on it. 58% of them are on a daily basis, 83% are on a weekly basis. So 1 million plus a day, 1.5 million a day are on Facebook in Ireland every single day. 2 million are on it every single week. And again, mobile. 1 million of them are using their phones to access Facebook on that daily basis. Loads of stats came out from The Guardian yesterday showing how Facebook has plummeted and there's tens of millions of people leaving Facebook in the past couple of months. The Guardian didn't research their stats whatsoever. They got them all messed up. They weren't counting for mobile or anything like that. Facebook is still growing, but rather slowly in most countries. And there's a company called Wolfram Alpha. It's a search engine, but the company behind it is Wolfram. And they did stats. They ran an app on Facebook, and they found out that actually people on Facebook that are active have 342 friends. And I put them in inverted commas because you meet someone once, you can add them as a friend. You tag someone on a photograph, you can add them as a friend on Facebook. The important thing to note is, on Facebook especially, everything you do on Facebook, it's a big stalking tool, so all your friends get to see what you do. You upload a photograph, your friends get to see that. You interact with a radio station competition, your friends get to see that. So anything you do, if you get X amount of interactions, if you get 1 interaction on something you do on Facebook as a radio station, the potential audience for that interaction is 342 people. So you've got 10,000 people on your Facebook page, and they're all chatting away to you or each other, interacting with you. Multiply that by 342, and that's your reach, as Facebook calls it. Twitter, 500,000 people on it right now. That's growing. Facebook is pretty much plateauing. It's growing slowly. It's still growing, but growing really slowly. About 80%, I think, of the web population in most developed countries are using Facebook now. Twitter still has a little bit to go, so that's the one that's growing. There's a lot of hype around Twitter as well, still because it's growing, but also because everyone in media seems to be on it. And in Ireland, 30% are on it on a daily basis. So 1 million on Facebook, about 150,000, 200,000 people are on Twitter on a daily basis. And this is why I'm at 120,000 tweets. Of the 150,000 people that are on Twitter every day in Ireland, they send out 1 million tweets between them. So 10 updates each per day, roughly, is what we're seeing right now. These stats come from Twitter. The other stats came from Facebook. So I talked about hashtags earlier. Hashtag is the new email address, is the new 088 number. People might have been texting you in before. They might be emailing you in as well. They're now using hashtags and they're now using Twitter to interact with you. So the mechanism of communications has changed quite a lot over time, and that's always going to change. And again, the idea of move fast and break things. If you don't try out new things and see what the capacity is for those, then you're going to be falling behind. And right now, 60% of people in this country have a smartphone. Ireland, one of the only countries that's completely obsessed about mobile and anything mobile related. Huge penetration rate, like 140%, I think, penetration for mobiles in this country. 60% now have smartphones. So that means they've got the internet on their phones, they've got apps on their phones as well. So what's happened in the past while is things have been disrupted. So this idea of software, again, will eat the world. Time and time shifting is what's happening now. So I don't need to listen to a radio show live. I can get it on playback. I can put it on a player. I can get the podcast of it. So if I miss it during the day, I can play it back. You see lots of people talking about various shows, saying so-and-so TD was on a local radio station in Donegal. People miss that, they go and they get the playback of it. So time doesn't matter as much anymore. Your show, if you have a show from 2 to 4 in the afternoon, that show doesn't run from 2 to 4 anymore, and you're already seeing it with radio stations. There's a build-up to it, there's the show itself, and there's post-show as well. And there's interactions happening before, during, and after nowadays. So for some shows, they mightn't have capacity for everything. You see a lot of radio stations now are doing interviews. You only have a certain amount of time and space for that interview on your show, but you can extend that interview later on and have it later on. Additional content as well for your website that way. Geography is dead as well. So we talked about listening in your car, listening on an app on your phone. I can listen into various radio stations around the country and around the world, and I do it because I want to listen to what they're playing, or the music that they're playing, or the shows that they're playing. So, as an example, Tara Gleeson, she had a show Sunday morning coming down on Phantom, and they cancelled the show, so she's gone from there, but she still has a show now on 8 Radio. And I tune in on a Sunday morning, listening to her on my iPad app in the house, and I listen to it there, and it's 3 hours of very, very good music. It's the type of music I like. And the interesting story, the backstory to this was, I heard about her show when she was on Phantom from people on Twitter and talked about what she was playing and saw the playlist being sent out, not directly by her, but people that were listening in. So they were evangelizing her and her show. I got to listen. I became a fan or a super fan, and I'll go to where she's going. If she moves again, I'll probably listen to whatever show she has on whatever radio station. And that's the idea now of geography. The 8 Radio, currently broadcasting weekends only, I think in Cork, Dublin and Limerick, but I have them on the iPad app, so it doesn't matter if I'm in those cities or not anymore. So here's the first of one of my spin slides. I know there's some spin people in the audience who are probably delighted at this free advertising. Survey from Spin brought out last week, the stats brought out where are their listeners listening in. So 46% radio, 23% computer, 32% on mobile app, 50% car radio, digital TV 3%. So it's not about what you tune in on an analog radio or a digital radio anymore. It's whatever suits the people, wherever they are, and they are on their phones constantly. Another crazy stat came out last week. The average person with a smartphone checks their phone 150 times a day. So you're more loyal to your phone than breathing, it seems, nowadays. And that's where people are. You go to where your audience is. If you want to set up a stall in a marketplace, you find the place that's got the best footfall, you set up there. It's the same now. You go to where the people are. So what I want when I'm actually, nowadays, if I'm on social media, I do actually want to be gently reminded that you have a show coming up, because I forget, because I'm that idiot that checks his phone 150 times a day, so I'm easily distracted. But if you are in my space, which is Twitter right now, or Facebook, it could be Google Plus in the next couple of years, I want you to be there, and I want you to remind me that your show is coming up, that this is next in the next hour, this is in the next half an hour, we're playing the following bands, or we're doing an interview in the next while. So again, Phantom. Everyone is doing this. Coming up on the show is this and this and this, and without treating your listenership as idiots, you do need to school them on what comes next and explain to them what's coming next. And that kind of gentle reminder stuff is fine for me. Now, if this was just a normal business, if it was an IT company and they were doing 15, 20, 50 updates a day on Twitter, I get quite pissed off quite quickly. But because it's a show telling you what's coming next on the radio, you will tune in, or you mightn't tune in. So streaming albums, interview with this band that you like, I'll tune in because of that. And I'll switch from one radio station to another if needs be when I'm on social media for you. And importantly nowadays is I want interactions. I want you to interact with me. Not just me interacting with you and getting nothing back. You have to, in a way, respect my space now. So, an example here, Ricochet, interacting with his listenership. Before a show, during a show, after a show, there's interactions happening. And in a way, people have buy-in then that they feel more responsible and part of the following of Ricochet, or the interactions of Ricochet because of that. Or, I listen to Lyric a lot of time when I drive, because I get very frustrated with people being really bad drivers, so Lyric kind of calms me down. And it's one of the default radio stations in the car as well. So listening to that, John Kelly talks about a various band. I listen to them, I tune in, I buy stuff because of that. I'm buying music based on radio stations and what's played on radio stations. Actually, radio stations for me now is the main way of influencing me on music. I'm not actually reading music blogs anymore because they're updating 20 times a day. I just don't have the time to get those 20 updates a day through one of my feeds. And another thing now is, and it's this idea of community, and there's these falsehoods around community, and we're all part of a big community, but you actually have to be interested in what your listeners are doing and interact and feed them and give them some nice stuff back. So this is a screenshot of Joss Whedon, who's done The Avengers and Buffy and everything else, and Dr. Horrible's sing-along blog. If there's any fans of that, it's amazing. But someone interviews him, are you still surprised how fanatical your fan base is? And his reply is, I don't think of them as fanatical so much as extraordinarily tasteful. They have great taste, they're very smart, and they're better than other people. And the internet goes absolutely insane when he makes a comment like that, and they've done the screenshot of that interview and it gets passed around. But it's that idea that you've got fans and they're fans of your work, but you also need to do the same as well nowadays with social media. You need to show that you value what they do. So you see it every couple of months with the whole JNLRs. We appreciate your listenership and so on, but it needs to be more than that in social media. You need to get into where they are and have some sort of relationship with people that way. And another thing with social media is you need to be discoverable. With infinite choice, people mightn't find you on the dial anymore, or they mightn't find you by just Googling radio stations in your area. There's so many radio stations. You're competing with Spotify, you're competing with YouTube directly. So you need to be discoverable. So that means people find you and find your content, but find your content in the spaces, again, that they're in. Be it YouTube, be it podcasts, be it blog posts and creating content on your own website, doing additional interviews, like text, print interviews with people, not just audio interviews. So people need to discover you, and you need to be discovered. And again, a very, very important thing for me nowadays is I'm hearing about all these things from other people, so from third parties or evangelizing, people that I trust and I think have good taste. They'll tell me about something, and I'll do that. So one of my best friends knows my taste in TV shows. Not that I have a television or anything like that, I just watch it online. And he's like, you'll like this. It's so un-PC and just so insulting to various people. This is the kind of stuff you would like. And Archer, if you ever watch Archer, that's exactly what I like. And he tells me, he's after finding out from somebody else and finding it from someone else. It's like recommending books all over again. People hand you a book, recommend it, saying, try this, you might like this book. So you need to be discoverable. So you need to be out there. People aren't going to come to you and just your website anymore. So again, this is like the Spin love in here. But what I mean by discoverable is, the reason I'm using Spin as an example is they win awards at the social media awards every year, which I run, and it's a good example of what works in social media and what's just shite. And you get the various submissions from people going, we're on Facebook and we have 100,000 fans. Amazing. Do they do anything for you? Do they interact with you? Do they tell other people about you to get you more traffic? No, then you're not going to win for that. So Spin, you can look at their stats, their public stats. 180,000 people like the Facebook page of Spin 103.8. So if they do an update, potentially up to 180,000 people will see it. Great. But the stat over here on the left-hand side is this idea of talking about, which means an interaction. And again, 342 friends is the average. So if one person interacts with Spin, potentially up to 342 people see that. So 10,000 people interacting with Spin on a weekly basis times 342 is actually the potential of that. So you go outside your main fan base and you can reach much, much further. And that's discoverability. People discover you because of their friends. And because it comes from a friend, you trust that more. And we have the various like Edelman surveys and trust barometers every year, and people, your friends, are the ones you trust the most. A thing to consider, this means probably nothing to a lot of people in this audience, but Facebook has this measurement called EdgeRank, that because so much is happening on Facebook now, because I'm connected to so many people, because I'm connected to so many brands, it's actually filtering the stuff you see in the newsfeed. And they use this algorithm called EdgeRank. And what it basically says is, they'll show you content from brands or radio stations more if you interact more with it. So if I'm interacting with Spin, or iRadio, or Red FM on a regular basis, I'm going to see more of their content. If there's a radio station that puts out content going, we're great, we're fantastic, and they're not getting responses back, because you wouldn't get responses back for that stuff, then Facebook says, this is boring. We can see from the lack of interactions, this is boring. We're not going to push that into people's Facebook anymore. And so EdgeRank is very important. And the Irish brand that's the best at EdgeRank and everything else is Paddy Power. Paddy Power on Facebook, or Newcastle Ale actually is another example. Paddy Power has it down to it's perfect. It bothers me, the content that they produce, but it goes for the lads mag demographic, 18 to 25-year-old males, and it works very well. So this is a status update today. Breaking news, Howard Webb appointed ref for Man United versus Chelsea game next Sunday. He needs just one more game to get a league medal. Even me, who knows nothing about sports, gets this. But the stats that we can see here are over on the kind of middle to upper right-hand side, 1,384 shares. So 1,300 people share that update with their friends and goes into the timeline of all their friends. So potentially up to 300,000 people have seen that update from their friends. And then 4,000 people commented on it. And if you're going to do an update and you slag off Liverpool players or Liverpool fans, if you're going to slag off Man United fans, positive or negative, you're going to get people commenting back. So in total, they had 5,500 interactions. So you'll see on Paddy Power's page, if you look at Paddy's Power page now, and you look at it this evening, they'll probably have gained about 2,000 fans. They're gaining tens of thousands of fans every week. And I don't have access to their internal stats, but one of the stats you get is your own fans, how many of your own fans saw your updates, and then this idea of viral reach. How many people that are not fans of Paddy Power actually saw your updates? And I've done stuff myself on my own pages, and you can see sometimes 60% viral reach. So a couple of thousand people who are not liking you on Facebook will actually see your content. And that's what you want nowadays. So all those quizzes that you have, all those interactions, all that fun banter that you might have on those pages, it actually works quite well, and it gains you fans on a cheap basis besides paying for ads. So here we see Paddy Power stats. 882,000 fans right now. As I said, if you probably check that now, it's probably at 883,000. But 168,000 people on a weekly basis have interacted with Paddy Power. So 168 times 342 is the potential there. And you can see the growth rate, the interaction rate on a weekly basis. It's huge. I'm going to finish on this. Well, there's one or two slides. I got slightly rebuked by Lisa earlier on saying, I hope that screenshot of your car radio doesn't have a certain national radio station on it. It does. So I bought this. So this is for the 96 FM and the Red FM and the 103 FM people in the audience. I bought this in Blackwater Motors. I bought the car in Blackwater Motors in Cork last year. This radio comes pre-tuned to those stations. So radio or RT Radio 1, 2 FM, Radio na Gaeltachta, 4 FM, Lyric, Today FM. They're the ones that are tuned to my radio. I may come from a tech background, but I'm not going to tune in a car radio at all. It just bothers me. So that pretty much is my limited choice there, and I switch between them. I said it to a car brand before. I was like, who tunes your radios? And they're like, oh, it comes default. Just as the cars all come in, basically off the docks, they're tuned like that. The local dealers can tune in the radio stations if they want. I think, given a lot of them advertise with you locally, that radio stations should be almost demanding that their stations be pre-tuned to those local stations in those local areas. And you can do a deal maybe with advertising with crowds like that. But it's a completely wasted opportunity. How many tens of thousands of cars are sold every couple of months in this country? And this is the space. James talked about it already in, internet radio in cars is not going to work. So there's a space there to go on. That, again, this is the idea. This is where your audience is. Go to where your audience is and get people to change the radio stations, the default radio stations in the car. So move fast and break things is a philosophy to have, and you need to try stuff out. If you're conservative about social media and worried and overthinking, you're screwed, basically. You need to try stuff out. And you see, and not being ageist here, but the younger radio stations that have younger staff try stuff out. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. From that, they discover things that work very, very well, and they do them again, and they build a template over time. And so Facebook's mantra is move fast and break things. Mine is shut the fuck up and just do it. And it bothers me when people go, what about this, what about this? Just do it, try it. You'll make a mistake, fine. You've learned something from making a mistake. If you're conservative, some, again, younger upstart who's probably 12 at this stage is probably going to do better than you. So there you go. And lastly, to discover me, if you want to find me online, if you just type Damien into Google, you'll probably find me. So thank you.
Thanks, Damien.